All right, I'm back. I'm not going to go over 3. Like I said, just check the answers. They are posted in Classroom. Let's talk about center versus spread now. Measures of center, things that we can find that fall under center, include mean, median, and mode. Measures of spread include range, IQR, and standard deviation. They talk about how spread out the data is. Let's talk a little more about what standard deviation tells us, though. Okay, so standard deviation describes how spread out a data distribution is. The closer the standard deviation, I just used SX rather than writing standard deviation, is to 0, the closer the points are to the mean or the average. Okay, so the smaller the standard deviation, the smaller the spread of the data, because all of that data is clustered closely around that average. Now, the larger the standard deviation, the more spread out the data is, okay, because it's further away from the mean. Okay, so using this understanding, it says apply that understanding. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 scores from Mr. Hoff's class both have a mean, an average score of 75. So totally different scores, but they both have an average of 75. That's where standard deviation comes in. We can calculate the standard deviation and then learn more about these data distributions based on those. I went ahead and used population standard deviation because he tested the entire class, but if you use the computer stat calculator link, it only gives you the sample standard deviation, and that's okay. We can still compare, okay? So for my standard deviations, I typed it in. I found the population. I got 3.9 for this Chapter 3 scores and 36 for the Chapter 4 scores. Now, if you remember, I said the closer the number is to 0, the more tightly clustered, that means the scores were around the mean. So these are way more tightly clustered around the mean than these are. So when I go ahead and explain what that means, I say, this tells us that the class had a similar understanding of Chapter 3, that first group, because everyone scored relatively close to the average. Okay, so everyone was pretty close on this test. However, I ran out of room, so I kind of went around. The large standard deviation on Chapter 4 tells us that the scores got really far away from the average, so some people really understood and some people did not, which is evident when you actually look at the scores. Some people got 10, some people got 100s. It wasn't clustered around that average anymore. There was a big gap in that data, which is why that standard deviation is much bigger. So standard deviation gives us an idea, especially when we're comparing two sets of data with the same mean, how tightly clustered around that average it is. Okay, and then this one is kind of a review. It says describe the data distributions and what you know. So I kind of traced the data distributions. I said, oh, this one looks kind of bimodal to me. However, the center would be close to the middle. Quiz 2, it looks like it's skewed left. The tail is going off to the left. Anytime it's skewed, that means our center is going to be further to the right, over on this side, okay? And then the last one, if you look, it's straight across the top, which means it's a uniform distribution. The center would be in the middle. And I would say overall, quiz 2, they perform the best on because that's the one where the center would be further to the right, okay? All right, that is the notes for today. You're going to use these to do your own calculations of statistics, okay? And if you have questions, feel free to email or join my Zoom. Thanks, bye.